So just a little perspective here. Lawrence Young, doctorate, economics, Yale. D.B. Wilson got a B.S. and a B.A. from the University of Colorado, okay? So, what I would like to talk about, though, is obviously the local market. I'm not going to touch on anything with the national market. So I'll just get going, and you're going to see a number of different time periods. So it will get a little confusing, and some of the numbers may not quite jive, but so it's going to be real important you think of the time frame that I'm talking about. The last two conferences, I went back and I looked at my notes, and when I stood before you for those conferences, we were having a huge reduction in the total number of sales. This year, at least as far as single family, this is a rolling year. So from November 1 through the end of October, the number of residential sales actually is up 9.4. Condominiums are down 1.9. Those are Boulder County figures. And then we're just off slightly. So that's the total number of sales on a yearly average. Everybody's kind of got their own interests within those Boulder County and Broomfield County statistics. And what you'll see here, now this is from January 1st through September 30th, so the first 3 quarters of the year. But what you can see is that values have come back for the most part. And in particular, I'd like to point out the city of Boulder, when you compare with 2007, so that looks like that is $10,000 reduction, but overall that is less than 2% reduction in average sales price. City of Louisville, do you think, all we've heard about are these tough economic times? Look at the city of Louisville. They have never had a higher average price. They're at their all-time high. So we're up in every particular area except the mountains. The other thing that I think is important to look at is the median price. And again, this is year to date. Boulder is off just 1.9% from its all-time high in 2007. Louisville, again, the median price has never been higher, never even been close to where it is today. And so again, the mountains are down and the city of Lafayette are down. I think a really important piece is looking at absorption rates. And an absorption rate is that if there were no new listings to come on the market, how long would it take to sell every listing currently on the market? And what you're seeing is the effect of the homebuyer tax credit, and when that wore off, and we went into what I would call the hangover. And I think some of the numbers that I show you here later on are really going to bear that out. So what we hope for in a really stable market is somewhere between 5 and 7 months worth of inventory. What I believe when you're looking at 9 or 10%, you're still probably looking at a fairly flat market. When you're looking at around a 6-month inventory, you're looking at a 3 to 5% appreciation rate annually. So even though we're exceeding that, I don't think that you're going to see very much reduction in price. Okay, so when you look at attached dwelling, again, this is the end of September, so the first 9 months of the year, and Boulder's off about 4%. In average price. Both Louisville and the suburban plains are up. Suburban plains was really punished in 2008, 2009, and you can see that with the price range, but it's coming back now. And here are the median prices. Again, year to date, Boulder's off about 5% from its high in 2008, And I would think that part of the reason for that is we had so many closings in the first part of 2008 with the high-end condominiums downtown in the city of Boulder. Okay, and so we haven't had that concentration of brand new product coming on. And at that time we had a great deal of listings closed. Now the absorption rate for condos, you can see, is at 10.5%, obviously a little higher than we'd want, and so plenty of supply. This graph will show you, if you look at the vertical lines represent the third quarter of every year, and you can see that we're at an all-time high as far as available inventory as when you look at it, the months that it would take to clear it out in the third quarter. There was a little bit of discussion about foreclosures. I thought that the really good news of this for the first 9 months is we were down 18%. This is Boulder County from the Public Trustee's Office. You'll see in October we were slightly higher, about 9% higher than we were the prior year, but overall we're still quite a bit below where we were in 2009. Okay, so we talked about riding the wave and of the benefits of the homebuyer tax credit, and Boulder County, or our area entirely, really, you'll see in this next slide how the second quarter, represented by that maroon line on the end, if you look at that, we've got 14 years worth of data, and you can see what a jump it was from the first quarter. And these are closings, quarterly sales, huge jump. And then when you look at that third quarter, how far it dropped off. So you can see what that homebuyer tax credit did. It brought so many sales, so many buyers in that probably would have bought this year anyway, but it brought it into that first half of the year, and consequently we've been having this hangover with sales declining. I think some of the really good news is for sellers, for homeowners, is, again, as you can see, our values have held steady, and in part it's because we've got limited inventory. Not necessarily a good thing for a buyer because he doesn't have a lot of selection, but it really has helped protect values. So when compared with the last 5 years, we're at the bottom, the fewest listings in that 5-year period for single family and as well for attached dwelling. Okay, so what I wanted to do with this slide is to really point out what happened in the first half of the year when that tax credit was available. And so just focus on the left side of this slide for the time being, which is single family. And you can see I've circled a couple of areas in particular, but the number of active listings was down substantially. This would have been as of June 30th. So June 30th of 2010 compared with June 30th, 2009. The other thing, you can see the values of the home was up nicely, but look at the number of sales year to date was up 25% from the year before for that first 6 months of the year. And at that time, the months of inventory was down to 7. And 19% were under contract, even at the end of that homebuyer tax credit. The next slide is for at the end of the third quarter. And again, just concentrate on the left-hand side. Active listings, we actually had more inventory than we did the prior year. Home values, both median and average, were still quite a bit above. But remember, we were at 25% more sales at the end of 6 months, and that had dropped down to 7.7%. So you can see that that's what I call the hangover period. And the number of months of inventory had jumped from 7 to 8.7. Percentage under contract had dropped down to 14%. And here's the importance for a seller is of all the new listings that have come on the market in the first 9 months, only 1/3 had actually sold. So that should indicate the importance of pricing it right. So then what I did was I did it for October, and this is where I think you can see some signs of recovery coming out of that hangover. And once again, the number of active listings is below where we were a year ago. The percentage of that were under contract had jumped from 14% under contract to 18% under contract. And the inventory had dropped slightly down to 8 months worth of inventory. So then let's look at the right side. And the right side is attached dwelling, condos and townhomes. And you can see that the active listings was well below where we were for the same time period in 2009. Sales year to date was up substantially, 24%. Months of inventory was less than 6 months at that time, and 19.5% were under contract. Here's the hangover. Remember, we were 24% above in the first 6 months, and we dropped down to 7% below after 9 months. So there were only 207 closings of attached dwellings in 3 months. Okay? And again, less than 1 in 3 listings were actually selling. Prices have, even though the number of sales had dropped substantially, prices are sustaining themselves, plus or minus 2%. You know, I don't think it's anything to get worried about. And we'll just have to see if the condo market is going to, if it's really recovering like what I think the single family is. And I think time will tell on that. Who knows with interest rates? You know, I think we heard a couple of different opinions as to what might happen with those. But I do think that it's important that people that are thinking about buying a home need to consider the consequences of what the interest rate does to your buying power. And so if you're hearing somebody say, well, I think that prices might drop a little bit, you know, it's going to have to drop substantially if the interest rates go up to even offset one another. So I've got 3 examples here, and you can see along the bottom that your payment is virtually the same if the interest rate is rising. In the middle, it's 5% or 0.5% higher, assuming a price drop of 5%, totally is offset. And likewise, if the interest rate goes up 1% and the prices were to drop 10%, your payment is still higher if you bought today with a 5% mortgage. And I think the important thing is to remember that you don't live with the price. The only time the price is important is maybe when you have to pay your taxes and what's assessed at, and when you go to sell it. But you have to live with the payment. Here's an example if on a $300,000 home purchase. And then what I think's interesting is that if you look at what the cost to you on a monthly basis is on a 5 or 6 or a 7% mortgage of $500,000, on an annual basis, you're spending $6,000 more for that one point extra of interest rate. And why not buy and take advantage of it now and save that $6,000 annually to do other things with? Thank you.